This is the second part of 3 of the Creepypasta story, Anna's Gift. Don't forget to comment, like, share and subscribe.
Assistant Athletic Director Jim Cobretti's police statement taken 2 weeks after the incident. He quit his job as the Assistant Athletic Director. Over the years, he was a regular at the police station's drunk tank. He is always talking about Anna's music in his slurred drunk stupors. It is safe to say that Jim's scared fatty liver would have killed him if the .45 caliber bullet to the head did not. Jim committed suicide in the spring of 2008.
I was the assistant athletic director at the time. Somehow, I was asked to be a chaperone the night of the spring talent show. Something about staff members being more active in student activities. I was really annoyed because the Penn's game was on that night. But hey, what can I do? The talent show started like every other lame talent show that has ever graced a high school auditorium. First, Susan McMahon did a cover of Katy Perry's latest hit. More like a hit to the head by the way she was singing. It was proof that not every child is a talented American Idol contestant, no matter what mommy and daddy say. There were comedy acts, dance routines, and one kid even tried magic. I almost died of laughter when the kid's rabbit shit in his magician's hat. But that was about all the excitement that I could pull out of being at this talentless show. Then, the curtain went down and the lights went dim. I thought the show was over at this point. But, wait. No. One more act. It was Anna. That's right, she was going to play the piano. Apparently she plays very well. She was in my gym class last semester. The poor girl had it rough in my class. She was about as athletic as a 90-pound awkward skinny girl could be. Making her play dodgeball is something I regret. She practically begged me not to play. I told her if she did not participate, she would get a 0 for the day. Anna, being the diligent student she was, sucked it up and played. Dan, our school's top athlete, really had a hard-on for Anna. I never understood why. I guess when you are a young hotshot, it is fun to pick on weaker kids. Dan was notorious for bullying, but nothing too serious. This time though, he crossed the line. During the dodgeball match, he saw Anna hiding behind the rest of the students. Dan has a sniper rifle for an arm. I could see it in his eyes what he wanted to do. Before I could stop him, Dan blasted Anna right in her face, breaking her glasses that cut into her eye and cheek. She hit the floor sobbing. Not one student came to her aid. I blew my whistle and ran over to her. In the back of my mind I thought she was being a little dramatic. I mean, it was only a rubber dodgeball. But I underestimated the extent of her injury. As I bent down and gently brushed the hair away from her face, I could see where her broken glasses sliced through her eyelid. And in that instant, I witnessed feral rage in that little girl's eyes. In all my years of coaching, I have never seen a look of such intensity and rage in the eyes of a student. I tried to help her up. With surprising force, she slapped my hand away and ran off into the girls' locker room. Before she got to the locker room, she turned around and gave a very odd smile. A smile that said, "Not right now, but someday you will pay." Then she was gone. Dan was getting celebratory rounds of high fives from his bros, and even Susan McMahon said, "Dan, you are so bad," with a smile, a sick smile that turned my stomach. Dan got 3 days in school suspension that got cut down to 1 because of his lawyer father's visit to the principal. Even the head coach backed up Dan's claim of the incident being just an accident. Now, I will never say that what happened that night was right. No, it was not right, let alone even explainable. But it does make you wonder about karma. You know the old saying, what goes around comes around. Well, it came around all right. That night, I actually didn't see what actually happened. I'm not ashamed to admit that I ran. I ran away when shadows began to form on the walls of the auditorium. I'm not going to talk about this anymore. If you want to get the gory details, go somewhere else. Isn't it time we stopped talking about that night?
This is the only audio recording of a police interview from a surviving student. His name is Tom. Tom's testimony is the only direct recreation of the events that night. This version of the story, though greatly debated, is considered what actually happened that night. Tom was blinded during the incident that night. Tom has been to several entomologists. No medical explanation can be given to his blindness. Tom claims his blindness is a direct result from seeing Anna's music. This delusion is probably a direct result from post-traumatic stress disorder. The grisly events are as follows.
I decided to get a front row seat for Anna's performance. I was surprised at how excited I was to hear her play. Rumor has it she is amazing. To be honest, I had another agenda that night. After the show, I was going to find Anna and actually ask her out. It was painful to endure the other performers. The whole time they were on stage, I was thinking about asking her out, and what she would say. If I was that nervous just thinking about asking her out, what would happen when I actually did? I wanted a pep talk from my friend Brad. But, since Brad has the attention span of a typical ADHD teenage male that he is, he left, leaving me alone to stew in my own fear of teenage dating rejection. I even bought her a dozen roses. I don't care what anyone says about her. She was beautiful in my eyes. I could tell that her personality had depth and there was a treasure trove of idiosyncrasies that made Anna, Anna. The curtain rose and the lights went dim. When Anna walked onto the stage, there were no clapping or shouted words of encouragement. In the back, I could hear Dan's big mouth saying something derogatory. I looked back at him and just shook my head in disgust. I thought to myself, someone should really shut him up someday. And that is when things started to get weird. I heard a faint whisper that said, "Is that what you want?" "Because I can and will make it happen." I turned to my right and said, "What?" to the kid sitting next to me. He said, "I didn't say anything, bro." And as I looked back to Anna, she was staring right at me with that smile. That inside joke smile she gives to people when they make fun of her in the halls. She then looked to the crowd, gave a graceful nod, and sat at the seat of the piano. She then began to play. There are no words to describe the beauty of the music she was making. It set my heart and mind on fire. I am far from a music expert, but what I heard sounded special. I can't put my finger on it, but there is something powerful about Anna's playing. Her music was like the waves of the ocean, violently crashing down then elegantly retracting back to the calm sea. I had a flood of emotions. I felt happiness like a child on Christmas morning, then sadness like the day of my grandmother's funeral. The emotion of the music was thick with substance. Each note was a brushstroke on a masterpiece painting. The music was so dynamic. Anna's music put me in a trance of ecstasy. There were even tears in my eyes. It was an effort to tear my eyes away from watching Anna play. I was looking at the faces in the crowd, to see if my fellow students were as moved as I was. My words are still falling short describing how amazing this moment in time was. But it would seem
Thanks
that
for
not
listening,
everyone
folks.
enjoyed
Please
the music
like or
like I
dislike,
did.
share and
I've
subscribe.
seen faces
Also,
twisted
don't
in
forget to
disgust.
click the bell icon
People
to
were
receive
getting out of their
notification when
seats
new
in a
videos
rush.
are released.
The guy sitting
Leave a
next
comment
to me
below
was
if you have
even
more to
clutching
say,
his
that
ears
just a
as
like
if
or
this
dislike.
wonderful music was
While you are
equivalent
down
to
there,
nails
leave
on
a
a
suggestion for
chalkboard.
what I should read in the
This
future.
angered me to see
Until
people
next
reacting
time,
like this.
stay safe out there.
Actually, it fucking pissed me off. To see a girl who has been beaten down all her life and now has the power to bring people to their knees, screaming in agony. Wait. No. Anna's music gave her the power to rip them asunder, blood covering the walls. Wait. No. I'm confused. That's not what it was like. It was beautiful. It was graceful. It was death. Suddenly, the people around me erupted into a whirlwind of violence. Did something happen, like an accident of some sort, and people were fighting to escape? I heard that you can go into shock without knowing you have gotten hurt. What the fuck is going on? Turned to the guy sitting next to me to ask that very question, and he was disemboweling himself. He was looking at me with a dead-eyed grin while pulling his own intestines out. He was shouting like a madman, "Do you hear? Do you fucking hear the beautiful sounds of hell?" My knee-jerk reaction was to get up and run, but fear turned my legs to jello. I was in such a state of confusion and paralyzed by fear. I wanted to help him, but the beautiful music shoved me right back into my seat. It was like Anna's music wanted me to witness this. But why? The rational part of my brain was frantically searching for a reasonable explanation, but none were found. Could they not hear it? Were they deaf to Anna's magnificence? Was it the music that turned these people into psychos? While I continued to try and rationalize this situation and hid my eyes from the scenes of carnage, that whisper of a voice returned to me saying, "Open your eyes, Tom. Please, you are meant to witness this." I didn't want to listen to this disembodied voice, but pure morbid fascination forced me to turn and witness what the voice wanted me to see. Strange geometric shapes flashed like a strobe light and tattooed my retina with an afterthought of the shapes. I had no idea what these shapes were, but I knew they were wrong somehow. The shapes alone made me sick. On some instinctive primal level, I knew I should not see these shapes, like how animals are naturally fearful of fire. For some reason I knew they were older than time itself and contained power that could never be explained with human vocabulary. It was a charnel house inside the auditorium. Students were ripping their eyes out. Ears were bitten off of heads. Within seconds, blood flowed down the aisles and pooled in coagulated puddles at the front row. The math teacher, Mrs. Brown, repeatedly bashed her head into a wooden pillar while laughing and screaming in equal measure. The sound of the massacre never fell on my ears. It was replaced by the beautiful music, Anna's music. The violence flowed with the music itself. I turned to Anna. She was still playing. She was frantically pounding the keys of the piano. Blood soaked the keys from broken fingers. Blood dripped from the old wound on her eye. The entire time she manically played, she kept that smile. Shadows seemed to manifest like growing pools of water from where Anna played. They crept up the walls all along the auditorium. Within these unnatural shadows were tormented faces, screaming and angry. Ghostly claws ripped from the shadow into the violent horde of spectators. Throats were slashed, spines broken, heads ripped from bodies. The crowd did not seem to notice the demonic apparitions while they dove deeper into acts of violence and self-mutilation. What I seen is unspeakable. It was an orgy of the macabre. Death intertwined with sexual acts to the flowing music that Anna pumped into the auditorium like the pulse to this massacre. My head started to swim. The unexplainable shapes I seen were somehow an explanation to the violence around me. It was as if these shapes were the blueprint to the music. Not like musical notes like on sheet music, but they were the inspiration for the music, the primogeniture of the music. I was feeling faint. It was getting darker. Before I blacked out, I seen Dan on his knees as if he was praying to Anna. She stared into his eyes and continued to play as the shadows came for him. He was screaming about forgiveness and mercy. What he exactly said, I will never know. A ghostly hand came through the ground and ripped his lower jaw off. Before his bleeding, lifeless body at the floor, Anna's whispering voice said to me, "See, my sweet Tom, I shut him up. Now please go to sleep while I finish my performance." Without argument, I slumped to the floor. The roof caved in moments later. I woke up to the sounds of sirens and a burly firefighter picking me up off the ground. "We got a live one here," he said. I heard screaming from the crowd that formed outside the auditorium. I heard things like, was it a gas explosion? A bombing? And, where is the gunman? I tried to ask about Anna in my dazed stupor. I must have blacked out again. Next thing I know, I'm in a hospital bed with a nurse there, changing my IV bag. Was it real? Only the memory of the music is the reminder that what happened that night was real.
This is the end of part 2. If part 3 is uploaded at this time, listen to part 3 by clicking on the end card.